All right. Good evening, and thank you for being here. I'm Rachel Godoyne, and I am on the outreach team at Monterey One Water. Just a little bit of housekeeping to start with. You'll see us talking into mics tonight, but this mic is actually for our online viewers so they can hear us. Hello, everybody online. Spanish interpretation is in the back if anybody would prefer to listen via Spanish. And we're really glad that you are here with us. So we know that conversations about rates are important to the community, and we appreciate you taking the time to be with us for this public information session. It's really a great opportunity to learn more and to ask questions from staff and subject matter experts. So tonight's goal is to help explain more about Monterey One Water's wastewater service, why we're proposing new rates now and how those rates were developed, and how the rate setting process will work moving forward. It is for information only. No action will be taken this evening. The public hearing for the proposed rates will be considered by our board on Monday, June 29th at 6 p.m. And tonight, again, it's really just an opportunity for you to hear directly from staff, from subject matter experts before that public hearing. So we'll start with a quick presentation and then we'll open it up to the floor for questions. And then we'll all be available after if you prefer to engage one-on-one. All right. So wastewater is something that most of us rely on every single day. Yet most of our system operates behind the scenes or underground. So every time you wash the dishes, take a shower, do laundry, flush the toilet, that used water is collected and flows into the local sewer system, which is operated by your local city or district. So here in the Marina area, that's Marina Coast Water District. It is then sent to our regional conveyance system, where we convey it to our regional treatment plant, which is just about 2 miles from here, where it is our responsibility to treat it and safely reintroduce it into the environment. So I have a prop for my next fact. All right, so this is a 1-gallon jug. On average, we treat about 17 million of these. So 17 million gallons of wastewater each day coming to our treatment plant. This work is essential to protecting public health, to supporting our communities, and of course, protecting the environment as well. I am now going to turn it over to our Assistant General Manager.
Hi, good evening. My name is Tammy McNary, and I'm the Assistant General Manager at Monterey One Water. And before we get started, I'd like to provide clarification from Rachel. Each of our entities have their own sewer bill. Ours, once it hits an interceptor and gets sent to our plant for primary and secondary treatment, that's what this rate discussion is all about. We do have tertiary treatment that is a whole different program. And we also have advanced water treatment, which is a whole different program. And that is not included in our rate increase. So if you have any questions, we will be answering any of your questions at the end. So why are rate changes needed? Like many public entities throughout California and the United States, our costs are rising. And we're faced with increased expenses to provide reliable, safe wastewater service. There are 4 key components: aging infrastructure. Portions of our wastewater system are over 40 years old. They need replacing, they need rehab. And so we need to do that in order to ensure safe and reliable service. Costs. Expenditures needed to maintain 24-hour operations continue to rise. Our 3 highest costs are PG&E, chemicals, and our workforce. Regulatory compliance. We operate under strict regulatory requirements, these requirements evolve. So they're forever changing, and we have to meet what comes across. And that over time affects water quality monitoring, reporting, and our operational needs. And all that costs money. Planning. One of the key goals of long-term financial planning is to proactively address infrastructure needs before an emergency happens. Because in an emergency, we are disruptive to our customers, and it's certainly more costly to handle emergencies. I'd like to say that Monterey One Water is a public agency. We don't make money off of these rates. The rates are set to provide services 24/7. Oh, am I supposed to do that? How did we develop these rates? We collaborated with an independent rate consultant to evaluate and provide wastewater services for today and future needs of the system. The first step, we started with identifying the cost to operate and maintain a reliable system, complete the required upgrades, and meet regulatory requirements. The second step included a cost of service analysis. This analysis evaluated customer information regarding flow and wastewater characteristics and projected our final financial needs over time, developing a long-term financial plan. Based on that analysis, the proposed rates were established. These rates basically cover the cost of providing long-term sustainability and are set proportionally across our customer groups or our customer categories. The proposed rates are currently being brought forward through this public process, which includes customer notification, informational outreach, and finally a public hearing before our board of directors. The proposed rates include a 5-year financial plan with the maximum percentage rate increase of 8% and the last 2 years being 9%. Any increase must be reviewed and approved by our board every year. Before setting the rate each year, the board will review current system costs, infrastructure needs, and our financial status. So if we get a grant and we get a bunch of money from the state or the federal government, that will reduce our need for an increase. So let's hope for the best, our group that are doing the grants. In year one, not every customer category will see the same percentage, as the model is being updated using current customer data and cost service information. Annual adjustments, if approved by our board, would be applied equally across customer categories going forward. So residential customers in year one, the Monterey One Water rate is proposed to increase by a little over $3, from $54 to $57.27, beginning July 1. Monterey One Water bills you guys or our customers every other month, so you would be seeing it for 2 months worth of service. These proposed rates will be considered by Monterey One Water Board of Directors at a public hearing on June 29th, the end of this month, 6:00 p.m. at our headquarters, after hearing public comments through the Prop 218 process.
All right. Thank you, Tammy. So Tammy talked about the proposed rates and the process used to develop them. But an important part of our conversation tonight is hearing what those rates will support. So I'd now like to invite up here with me our subject matter experts. So if my colleagues will join me. All right. So Wastewater service depends on a wide range of people working together every single day. So we have operators who are keeping the treatment systems running 24 hours a day. We have water quality and compliance staff helping meet environmental requirements. We have engineering and project teams who are planning infrastructure improvements. Sorry, I'm trying to be visible, but also on camera. And then we have finance staff working to support long term system planning and proportionate cost recovery. So, to help connect those areas of work to the proposed rates, we're going to hear briefly from each of these experts tonight on the Monterey One Water staff.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. My name is Jose Guzman. I'm the operations manager at Monterey One Water. I lead the operations team who is responsible for managing the complex infrastructure located at the treatment facility. In addition, operations staff monitor biological and chemical treatment processes to ensure that the water we release to the environment meets strict environmental and regulatory standards. Up to this point, you've been hearing what Monterey One Water's role is in the collection and treatment of wastewater, and I'm going to provide a little more insight to that from an operations perspective. First on the list is staff. Monterey One Water employs a number of highly trained and certified operations staff, maintenance staff, electricians, laboratory staff, instrument techs, engineers, and that's just to name a few. And what your rates help pay for is the treatment process itself and the operation and maintenance, which requires a substantial amount of energy and chemical, two areas that have seen near double-digit increases for the past 5 or so years. In addition to general O&M, it also allows us to plan for the future by having a preventative maintenance program that's robust, that helps ensure the reliability of our equipment and that we get efficient treatment that is safe and reliable because, again, it is a 24-hour operation. And it also helps plan for the future in the sense of replacement of capital infrastructure because wastewater, the process is harsh. It's a harsh environment. And we do see a lot of corrosion and just over time, some of that infrastructure degrades and it's inevitable. So your rates help keep our operation going 24/7.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Sarah. I'm the Environmental and Regulatory Compliance Supervisor for Monterey One Water. I'm essentially responsible for ensuring that Monterey One Water complies with air, water, and hazardous materials regulations. In addition, I oversee the source control and pretreatment program staff who are responsible for regulating discharges to the collection system and monitoring wastewater quality to make sure that it's protective of the regional treatment plant. Wastewater treatment facilities operate under strict regulatory requirements that are designed to protect public health and the environment. Meeting these mandatory standards requires ongoing monitoring, testing, reporting, inspections, specialized equipment, and certified staff. As regulations evolve over time, agencies like Monterey One Water have to update their equipment, processes, and procedures to maintain reliable treatment performance and maintain compliance. This work ensures that the wastewater we receive is safely treated before it's reintroduced back into the environment. While much of this work happens behind the scenes, it's a critical aspect of what we do to protect the communities that we serve, the environment, and public health. Pass it over to Matt.
All right. Good evening, folks. Thank you for joining us here this evening. My name is Matt Thompson. I am the Director of Engineering at Monterey One Water. I lead a small team of professional engineers who are responsible for completing large projects to improve our infrastructure. I like to refer to it as our infrastructure because Monterey One Water is a public agency. So all of its assets are ultimately owned by you, the citizens who pay for wastewater service. Providing reliable wastewater service requires a lot of infrastructure, including pump stations, pipelines, and treatment facilities. This infrastructure is a major investment. Monterey One Water maintains well over $1 billion in infrastructure assets. It is really important for us to be good stewards of these assets. We do this by scheduling a series of projects to rehabilitate, replace, and upgrade the infrastructure. Our goal is to maintain the infrastructure in good working condition so it does not fail or cause emergencies or become an expensive problem for future generations. We also want to keep up with evolving regulations. We have numerous projects planned in the coming years. We have carefully prioritized and scheduled the projects to spread the costs over time to even out annual expenditures and allow time to secure financing for some of the more expensive projects. This helps minimize the need for drastic changes to wastewater rates over time. We have projects to improve the reliability of pump stations and pipelines that deliver sewage from each community to the regional treatment plant. For example, we're currently under construction on upgrades to the Monterey and Seaside pump stations, two of our largest sewage pump stations. We have similar projects planned for the sewage pump stations that serve this area. We also have a major electrical project under construction at the regional treatment plant that will greatly improve electrical reliability, enable us to purchase more renewable electricity from the neighboring region landfill, and reduce our dependence on PG&E electrical power. That should really help us to control costs over time. We recently completed a master plan for a major upgrade of the regional treatment plant. The plant is aging and much of it has reached the end of its life. We plan to upgrade to a much more efficient treatment process that is capable of complying with evolving regulations. The project will add 30 to 40 years of new life to the facility. We're also preparing to begin construction of renewable energy improvements. This includes a new system to upgrade our biogas to a new renewable energy supply for the Monterey Peninsula. We intend to inject renewable natural gas into PG&E's natural gas supply pipeline, which serves the Monterey Peninsula area, including here and Carmel Valley. The project also includes new generators to efficiently produce clean electrical power. This will greatly reduce the environmental impact of our operations, help control our operating costs, and result in some new revenues to the agency. All these projects should work together to help ensure Monterey One Water always provides reliable wastewater service and remains compliant with evolving regulations. Thank you for hearing about our improvements. I'd be glad to answer any questions you might have about our planned projects.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. My name is Dylan Hopkins. I'm an accountant on the Monterey One Water team. I'm here to discuss the financial aspect of this rate study and the proposed rate increases. The goal of the rate study was to develop rates based on both short-term and long-term costs of providing wastewater service to the community. One of the main categories was that one of the main variables that we considered was that different customer categories place different demand on the system. The study evaluated factors like wastewater flow levels, strength characteristics, infrastructure use and wear, and the overall cost of service for each category. As we continue to experience increasing costs in our economy, long-term financial planning is crucial to provide financial stability and overall reliable service to our customers. Our infrastructure is aging and does require ongoing maintenance, replacement, and support over the many years and decades to come. Monterey One Water works to manage costs carefully through strategic financial plans, pursuing grants and other outside funding as available, and developing customer assistance programs that are funded by non-rate revenue. Our goal is to help maintain reliable wastewater service while also planning financially responsible future plans. Thank you.
Can't forget our viewers at home. All right. Thank you, staff, for sharing a little about your responsibilities at Monterey One Water. I am now very excited to share with you a new feature we have on our website. So, Monterey One Water now offers a 360-degree virtual tour of our regional treatment plant. So it is an interactive experience that will take you behind the scenes of our treatment plant to areas that even only our specialists can access. So on the screen, we have both the URL and a QR code that will take you right there. And it's a pretty fun way to, with a little bit of potty humor in there, but a real fun way to better understand the infrastructure that this team up here is ensuring is both reliable, allows us to maintain and operate the system, comply with regulations, and support today's community and those in the future. So I do encourage you to check it out. And with that, that is the end of our presentation. Again, we know these are really important conversations for the community, so we appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight. As a reminder, I know we've said it many times, but just want to keep reminding you that the board will consider this action Monday, June 29th at 6 p.m. At our administrative offices in Ryan Ranch, Monterey. So 5 Harris Court, Building D. And with that, we would be happy to answer any questions you have about your wastewater service. And we can start in the room and then we'll go online. Tammy, I'm going to give this.
Okay, so this is your time to ask whatever question you might have. Yes, the gentleman here.
One of the slides I thought showed a solar farm in the background. Is that owned by Monterey One Water?
Yes, so the solar farm we actually lease. We're on, I believe it was a 20-year lease, or we have 20 years left. I'm not quite sure.
Quite a few years less, 20 years.
Yeah, so it was intended to provide energy up to our tertiary treatment plant. And so we still will have that until the contract is over, my guess. Just the tertiary at this point. However, we do have an interconnect that is coming from Regen that was to provide energy to AWPF. That was actually supposed to be done and completed by the time AWPF came online. That didn't happen, but it will happen. And in the meantime, our engineers decided that it would be great to provide to our other 2 facilities, the RTP and the tertiary treatment. So our end goal will be a loop system.
And that loop system will allow us to provide wastewater treatment and then water recycling. And as Tammy said, just a reminder, tonight is solely about wastewater treatment rates. But that system will allow us to move locally produced domestic energy through all 3 of those facilities. So it's really going to reduce our reliance on the California grid, which obviously has reliability impacts, financial impacts, as we're anticipating a significant decrease in how much that energy is going to cost by having that local control. And of course, environmental benefits as well.
So let me provide clarification. The reason why these rates are only for primary and secondary treatment, because you are our customers, and you pay for that portion. The advanced water treatment is paid by our customer there, which is the water management district, who in turn sells it to Cal-Am. Same thing with our tertiary plant. So our customers do not provide any payment for those 2 facilities. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I don't think your audio system works.
Sorry, you missed it in the beginning. The mics are only for those online. It's to pick up our voices for those
Yeah, I
online.
just wanted clarification.
Yes,
I
yes,
mean, I can hear okay.
yes.
So
We'll
this is
project.
basically for people who are on the Zoom.
Correct.
Okay. I just wanted to get that. I guess I have a couple questions, maybe a few questions. So how big is the staff in terms of,
We're budgeted at about 111 full-time employees.
so how many of those are technical versus just administrative? What's the ratio?
About 20 administrative, the rest tech.
They're all technical. Say 100. Okay, and you service what areas?
The Monterey One Water Wastewater Service District runs from Moss Landing down to Pacific Grove and inland to Salinas. It does pick up a few pockets of an unincorporated Monterey County within those cities.
So how many approximately?
Two parcels, it's about 63,000 parcels, represents about 285,000 residents and almost 7,000 businesses.
So can you kind of refresh my memory? I think we kind of went through this before. I think it's kind of like a deja vu. Wasn't there some public hearings about rate increases? I remember that. And we've lived in we live in Marina, my wife. So we've been here about 11 years. So I remember after moving in, it was within maybe a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, we were getting notices about rate increases. Yeah, and so is this piggybacking on that, or what? Or was there an underestimation of that time of those rate increases? I don't know.
They expire. And so Tammy will get into the detail, but in general, as a public utility, we have to go through this public process. It's governed through the California Public Health and Safety Code, and it limits us to projecting out financial needs and maximum rates for 5 years. So the board can do a rate study for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, or 5 years. But at the end of your rate study, you need to conduct another one in order for you to update your rate to current needs.
What you're referring to is, yes, there were public hearings about 5-6 years ago. And so they identified increases for 5 years. Now, if you were here longer than that, when I got here in 2018, there had been a span of 12 years that our agency did not provide a rate increase. And that actually, for the customer, it might sound good, but for a utility, you lost 12 years of rates that could have provided improvements. When I got here, our CIP, which is our capital improvement program, was about 4 or 5 million a year. Because the previous GM, not the existing one, the one that retired, he took pride in not doing rate increases. In fact, when I got there, there was a shelving unit with awards, and there was a t-shirt that said, "Have not increased our rates for 12 years. And I said, get rid of that. That is embarrassing for any utility throughout the nation to have not increased to keep up with the costs. So when I got there, we were spending 4 to 5 million on capital improvement projects. What we're looking at, because everything's 40 years old and needing replacement, we're looking at 50 million a year for the next 10 years.
They have a board at that time. So did the board go along with the GM and said, we're not gonna have any rate increases?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. We're a public utility, so we are governed by a board of elected officials. And, there are a lot of different ways to kind of look at it. When the plant, how I like to describe it sometimes is like when the plant was a teenager, it didn't need as much maintenance, right? So you can either prepare, it's like the same with retirement and with aging, right? With our bodies aging. You can put away over time so you're prepared for later in life, or you can kind of wait and do a pay as you go when you get there. And so at that time, again, the plant was young. It required less O&M than it does today. And so that was the decision that board took pride in at the time. Fast forward to today, and you've lost the compounding impact if you had been doing steady increases over time. And so part of what you're seeing today is the result of needing to do some catch up opposed to having consistently planned for this point, right? Wastewater infrastructure, especially in our environment, this kind of corrosive marine environment, has about an average lifespan of 35 years. Our plant turned 35 last year. So we're reaching the end of useful life. You may recall too that in this area, prior to our formation, each city was doing just a little bit of treatment and discharging it into the bay. And what happened was we took some of that infrastructure and converted it to pump stations and conveyance lines to bring that water here. So some of our infrastructure is even older than the 35 years that our facility just north of here is. So there's different ways, right, to prepare for the future. The future is here now when it comes to capital improvement and end of useful life on our infrastructure.
Yeah, so I don't want to go back and woulda, shoulda, coulda, but is it fair to say that now these rate increases are to make up for what was not properly done in the past? Is that it? I mean,
again, let's not do the shoulda, woulda, coulda. But yes, these rate increases now are to address the fact that we have significant capital improvement to do on the end of useful life on this infrastructure.
Go ahead and interject here. I think it's a little bit of both. I think the rate increase that you remember, the hearings that were 5 years ago, that was to help us at least get to where we needed to get. In the meantime, our infrastructure and our facilities have aged another 5 years. And so this is actually, we've got a master plan for the RTP. Some of our operations and processes we're going to change because they're a dinosaur way of treating. So we are going to bring our facility up to where it needs to be. So to answer your question, it's a little bit of both, the catch up, and also we want the future to be a reliable system.
Feel that they just had to go ahead with that increase, and obviously it was inadequate, right?
Yeah. So
So now we're coming back. I'm just telling you, I'm taxed to death. I'm really taxed to death. So, well, let me bring up this other thing too. There was a situation. I think they were planning to, I would assume, to reduce costs, to put all the fees that we're now paying every 2 months, right? We get a letter in the mail, whatever. There's all this expense. We're going to put it on the property tax.
Right, and that got shut down by our board. It didn't get voted. It didn't pass our board. So we did a huge outreach to do that, and it cost roughly $100,000 to have our folks go out and do an outreach. And the biggest cost was all the publication. And the goal was we wanted to save about $400,000 a year going forward. We were all ready for it. Unfortunately, our board of directors did not pass that proposal. So the question from the audience was, we went ahead and sent out the letter to our customers, even though the board wasn't going to approve it. We did not know the board was not going to approve that. We were all systems go, thinking that everybody was on board. Well,
sorry,
no, they sent out the letter. Go ahead.
Sorry, just to clarify, our board. We are. And these might be the public hearings you were remembering, or the forums, because we hosted several, including one in this very room, on that outreach effort. What happened in that situation was our board unanimously voted to move the billing from bi-monthly, what you receive in the mail, to the property tax. They voted unanimously. So they directed staff to go ahead and implement the change. So a number of people in this room started that process. So we started working with the customer because that's not a change you just want to tell the customer 1 month before it's going to happen, right? So we started over a 6-month period. We were planning to do that communication. Annually, when you put a fee on the tax roll, because it wouldn't have been a tax, it would have been a fee, below the line where it says other fees. To do that annually, your board has to basically do a resolution and pass by a 2/3 majority vote to go ahead and put that year's fees on the tax roll. Every year you have to do that. When it came time to do that, the board flopped its vote and it pivoted. Thank you. The board pivoted, and 2 board members elected not to approve the file basically that we needed to upload to the county. And that prevented us from moving to the tax roll. Yeah.
So the customer said that what was the reasoning behind pivoting? Because a lot of utilities do this on the tax roll, the 10th largest city, San Jose. And so that's the question on the table.
The rationale of the 2 board members was that they heard from their community members that it was going to be a fiscal burden to have to pay in 1 or 2 lump sums opposed to bi-monthly.
So the question on the table from the customer is that he has some concerns as far as Monterey One water management and some of the decisions moving forward. From that, I would have to say I'm basically part of this team, and I used to work for San Antonio Water System, which was a huge organization, and you've got the best of the best trying to provide reliable water wastewater treatment services. And for our size of an organization, we are doing more than large organizations. So I would be more than happy to talk to you after the question and answer to see what your concerns are and see if I can provide you information that would change your thought process. So does anybody have any other questions out there? Yes.
The pipelines going out to the ocean, are they still used?
So the question on the table is, are ocean outfall still used? Absolutely. It is still used, and our goal, so when we built the recycle for the regional treatment plant, 100% of our secondary treatment water went out. 10 years into it, then we built the tertiary treatment plant, and we used whatever we could during the growing season because all that water goes to 12,000 acres of farmland. And then they don't need it in the winter months. So whatever was used in the winter months went out the outfall. And then 5 years ago, we built the advanced water treatment plant. So what I say is the water goes 1 of 3 places when it is done with secondary treatment. It either goes what I call up the hill for tertiary treatment to the growers, or it goes to advanced water treatment that will then get injected into the aquifer for CalAm to end up using that as water, or it goes out the outfall. However, because of our operations with AWPF, during that process, we generate what's called RO concentrate, reverse osmosis concentrate. So about 1 million gallons of RO concentrate goes to the ocean no matter what. If we use every drop of water for the other 2 recycle facilities, at least 1 million gallons of RO concentrate goes out. It's a very important asset that we have, this ocean outfall.
We recycle about 80% of the flows that enter our regional treatment plant. And actually, I think we'll pause really quickly with the in-room questions, and we'll head online for a minute here. And I may even be calling on some of you in the back for this one, but I'll attempt it first. All right, so question from online. Can someone shed some light on the rates for some commercial establishments being lower than individual residential rates? For example, am I reading this right? That in 2026, a residential unit pays $54, whereas an up to 50 member gym pays $34.10 per month. And so, yes, you are reading that correctly. A few things to note, important things to note. So yes, it's up to 500. So if the gym has membership above that, then you would tack on another $34 and change, $34.10. And the way that this all gets calculated, I think Dylan and Tammy both touched on this a little bit, but we conduct a rate study. And what they do is by each category, so for example, in this case, a gym, they look at the flow coming out of that residence, the strength of the average flow coming out, the strength of the wastewater, kind of the characteristics of that wastewater, which then translates to like treatment impacts. And that's how those rates are developed. Kind of looking in the back. Anything in the back you want to add or seems good? And this is Lindsay. Lindsay is our customer service supervisor and billing expert.
So when the gyms are in the equivalent of the businesses, mostly are the ones that you just go in and there might be weight and things of that nature. If you go to a gym like in Shape where there's a pool and showers and facilities like that, those are removed from a categorical and they're put in a special user. And we actually obtain the water usage from those businesses that are large and we bill them according to usage. So a large gym that has those sort of facilities would not be considered that small gym with the 500 members. And a lot of those 500 members only have 3 or 4 people at a time, and there isn't a lot of water usage there. They're just where you can work out. There's not a shower available and those things. So that's the difference in those categories. But when there is a category that's large and high in usage, they get put into a special user category to bill everybody fair and accordingly.
All right, we're going to go online again. Sorry, I wasn't in screen, so I'm going to move to the middle. All right, so question from online. My sewer fee is $75 per month. Your chart shows $54 per month. What is the difference due to? P.S. I have a 1-bedroom condo. So your Monterey One Water bill has 2 components. Number 1 is the collection fee charged by your city or district. So for example, if you're here in the Marina area, Marina Coast Water District in that case charges you directly. Let's say you were in Pacific Grove or Monterey. Nope, not Monterey. They charge on the tax roll. Those member entities, they charge in all different ways. All right. So let's say you're in Pacific Grove or you're in the city of Salinas. You are in Delray Oaks, Seaside, Sand City, any of those municipalities. They collect the water. So that's the water coming out of your home or business, and they collect it and move it through a pipe system. That's called your local sewer system to our regional conveyance system. Once it's in our regional system, it then turns over to the responsibility of Monterey One Water. In our bill, the $54 currently, it covers moving the collective community's wastewater to our regional treatment plant, treating it, and safely reintroducing it into the environment. And so while Tammy has talked tonight about recycled water, and that is one way we reintroduce it into the environment, the Monterey One Water portion stops at basically safe to be discharged to the ocean. It doesn't continue on to the recycled water portions. So with a bill of, I think it said $74, I think it's basically saying $54 to Monterey One Water and another portion to your city for collections. Are you kind of estimating that in the same way I am?
Yeah, so we actually do the billing for those different entities. So we actually bill the $54 and then we bill, and there's an average of our member entities of about $22 and they vary. However, Marina Coast, which is where we are, you guys receive your own bill from Marina Coast Water that does water and sewer. So when you receive Monterey One Water, it is only for the sewer charge from when it gets to the interceptor through primary and secondary treatment. And then keep in mind, I know a lot of people, they say, oh, I only live in a small 1 bedroom or a condo. This is similar to the garbage fee. Whether you're on vacation for 2 weeks or 4 weeks and you don't put a thing of garbage out, you still pay for the garbage service. So this is the same equal, we pay for the service. 85% is based on just the ability to have your wastewater leaving and getting treated. So are there any other questions online?
Yep, we got one more online. Sorry. In general, they're talking about believing that another stressor to the system is all of the growth and the development. And do those developers, entities organizations need to carry some of the weight? And the answer is yes, they do. So there's something called a connection or a capacity fee. And so if you want to basically punch a hole into our system, you have to pay for capacity into the system. That's what it's called. I like to think of it as like a connection fee. So if you want to connect your parcel to the wastewater system, you have to pay to connect into the system. And that's what helps offset and plan for that capacity, that long-term capacity in our system. So that's how you get connected, and then you start receiving your bi-monthly bill. Any other questions online? All right, we're going to flip back to the room. Any other questions in the room? Yeah.
I just have a couple of questions regarding implementation of the increases. So the board will have a meeting on the 29th to decide. And if they were to decide yes, then that increase would be implemented within like 30 hours.
Yeah. Oh, was it multi-part?
Multi-part.
Okay. You want me to take that part first? Okay. So the way it would work is it's actually going to be two parts. So the first part is this rate schedule. So our rate study analyzed the needs over the next 5 years, and the board will consider if they want to set this maximum rate schedule. And so if they approve this maximum rate schedule, that's the maximum each year that we can plan for and you can plan for. They will then have to turn around, though, and annually set a rate. So they will immediately then take action to set the rate for this upcoming fiscal year. We run on fiscal year, so it's a July 1, 2026 through June 30th, 2027. And so they can then turn around and set that rate at the current amount, $54, or up to the $57.27 for a single unit residential parcel. Multi-part.
Just administratively, I was thinking, wow, that's quick. 30 hours and it's implemented. That's really quick. And then I understand they review it each year. And so let's just say you didn't have as many expenses as you thought. So then could they actually, in theory, lower?
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And so Tammy gave a really good example, because this is something. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me repeat the question. So the question was, since these are upper limits, theoretically, next year, could your board say, hey, current need doesn't show that we need to increase our revenue by 8%. Let's set the rates lower. And yes, the board can do that. And a good example Tammy shared was a grant. So on my team, we help write grants. So over the course of the last 5 years, we've brought in about $7 million to help offset the cost of wastewater service. So let's just say, fingers crossed, let's all wish for this, that Matt tells us he has a wastewater project. We go out and we secure a $5 million grant to help build one of those capital projects. The board then can say, hey, we don't need to cover that $5 million with wastewater rates. We want to set the rate. We don't want to raise the rate, or we want to set the rate only 2% higher, whatever the need is, right? As a public utility, as a nonprofit, we can only charge the cost of service. And so annually, we have a budgeting process that includes a budget workshop with our board, where we essentially need to defense our needs. And so we go category by category to explain all of the assumptions used in predicting our costs over the coming years. And any kind of existing contracts. We get quotes for upcoming years, employee agreement. a whole host of factors that we use to then project out the budget.
So there's actually a chance of revenue, and I'm going to pass it over to Matt to talk about these energy projects, upgrades could bring in monies to our organization.
Yeah, so an example, I mentioned several of the projects we're planning for electrical reliability, connection from regen to buy renewable electricity, the so-called microgrid to interconnect the 3 treatment facilities, and then this project called renewable energy improvements to make a new source of renewable energy. All 3 of those projects, these very significant amount of spending. We're talking about $100+ million of expenditures for these projects. All 3 of these projects are eligible for the federal investment tax credit. This was something that was established to incentivize agencies like ours to invest in electrical reliability and renewable energy. So, and the investment tax credit is potentially significant. It's potentially up to about 30% of that total upfront expenditure. So that's an example. If in a year or 2 after we sort of incur these expenses and seek reimbursement through the federal government, we actually receive the investment tax credit. That's an example of a way that could potentially result in a future less than maximum establishment of that year's wastewater rate.
I just want to remind those who are joining us online that if you have a question, please use the Q&A feature to type your question, and then we will take it here in the room.
Yeah, I just was reminded of a question. I didn't finish answering it when I asked you about your staffing and the ratio and whatever, but what proportion of or how did you input in terms of this request for rate increases? Obviously, they include anticipation in employee benefits, employee raises, things of that nature. So what proportion of the rate increases are allocated to those expenses?
So our human resource department, we have what's called MOUs with the different categories of employees. And we are in the 3rd year of a 3-year agreed upon MOU. And this 3rd year is, I believe, 3. Is it 3 or 3.5%? 3%. So employees across all different categories will have a 3% raise this last and final year.
Okay, but this goes out further than 3 years.
Well, we have to do to go. Yes, we.
So what are you anticipating? What are you imputing in there? A 5% increase in employees' benefits and raises, 10%, or what?
No, I don't believe it's that high. We have to do negotiations with each of the MOUs, and so you're right. In this financial planning model, what did we put in for increases on average? For all 5 years? That's what he's asking.
Okay, so the rates are based on those 3% then. You imputing, right? Okay, because that's the, a big question, because a lot of times those increases go up and you don't anticipate those. But so what happens if the employee associations or whatever negotiate a higher raise? What's going to make up the difference, and where is that money going to come from?
Yeah, my understanding is those rates, the annual rates, are kind of multi-pronged, right? They're going to set a minimum and a maximum. If somebody's more familiar, they're welcome to step in. But I know that we base our cost of living adjustment each year. I believe it's on the San Francisco cost of living, that index. And so this year, I believe it came in at 2.7%. That MOU agreement had a minimum of 3%, right? So we use that 3% cost. of
Okay,
living
because we don't know what inflation is going to be going forward, so.
Correct. And so they set a range and we're going to go based off of that San Francisco cost of living index.
Okay, so I still didn't get a clear idea of where is it going to impact? Obviously, it's going to impact in paying those employee benefits and raises. So is that going to affect the overall program, or how is it? Where is that money going to come from? In other words,
Correct. Yeah, that's included in our O&M expenses.
Right. And then that's, you looked at the 5 years and there was a maximum. So there is some play as far as the maximum. Were the 3 at 8% and the last 2 years at 9%. So everything is variable. Do we get a grant? What are the MOU negotiations? Because we do go into negotiations here in the next couple months. So yes, every year that figure is the maximum. And so there is some play in there.
And then I also just want to point one thing out. So on our website and on your Prop 218 flyer, you have the URL and a QR code. The proposed rates are based on this wastewater rate study. So an independent advisor comes in to analyze our financial plan and develop a financial plan for us and back into that. And they categorically estimate inflation by category, including salaries and wages. And so within this, you can see categorically how they've estimated inflation for things like wages, benefits, chemicals, utility, like operating costs. So they break it down in this study. And then kind of getting at your question though, right? When you're balancing budgets, you have two levers, right? Revenue and expenses. And so if expenses are higher than anticipated, we would either need to cut them or we would need to increase revenue. So one way you can do that is to pull from the reserves. The other way is to start this process right here, this public process where we have to conduct a study, send out the notice, hold the public information session, hold the public hearing. You start it all over. So typically in those situations, you hope to have some reserves to be able to pull the revenue lever. But usually, I think it was Tammy who said, like, it's going to be a combination, right? It's going to be everybody really sharpen your pencils on your budget and make sure we're decreasing expenses as much as possible. And then on the other side, do we have reserves if we're trying to balance just a little bit? But I do encourage everybody, if you have really detailed studies, that this comprehensive wastewater rate study conducted by the third-party financial analyst, this is what really backs up how they analyzed, how they predicted expenses, how they're helping us plan, and then the model they're using to then break down costs proportionately by customer group, and then taking that proportionate cost of service and categorizing it out by customer group.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Any Q&A submitted online.
We are going to be here around to answer anybody's questions or to have a conversation. If you didn't ask the question, we're going to be here for about the next however long it takes to address anything that you might have. Really appreciate your time, especially since there's a big ball game on tonight. So thank you for taking your time and being here. I want to thank staff and our subject matter experts for being here, and actually our Spanish interpreter who we didn't actually need, but thank you for being here and that capability. Thanks.